Okay guys, welcome back to the channel and Happy New Year to all of you. This is our first filming session since the new year. So New Year's always mean sort of new intentions, Matty, new goals, and we each have some new golfing goals for the new year.
New Year's resolutions, one might call them.
Yeah, we do. We are, we've talked a lot in the last month or so about our own games, our own goals for this coming year, and both of us have some improvements we'd like to make to the swing.
Definitely.
We both enjoy practice, we both enjoy working on our games, and there's nothing more demoralising or disheartening than when you're putting in a lot of time, and not that either of us have that much time, but the time we put in, we want it to be well spent.
I wanted to see some results too.
Exactly. So, for that, we've invited our great friend Scott Cowx back to the channel. Nice to see you, sir.
Welcome back.
Nice to see you guys. Thank you for having me again.
Not at all.
Glad to have you.
Yep. So Scott is someone I've worked with for a number of years now. Matty, you've done a couple of sessions with
Scott maybe a couple seasons ago. Yep.
So we want to dive into a little series here where we kind of take you guys through our journey of trying to improve some technical things. But not just technical things. We want to look at our game, as a whole.
Yeah, it'll evolve as the series goes on. I think we'll start in the technical realm in the off season, and then we'll move into it.
Which is where this is the time, that we should be spending on technical pieces right now and thinking about it, Scott. I mean, you're a big proponent of once the season gets going, you got to golf your ball. That's the time to focus on scoring. But this is the time if you're going to break it down, it's now.
For sure. I mean, I think that's one of the nice things about being in Canada, right? You definitely have definitive seasons where you have a chance to work on your game in the off season, right? Work on it all winter, get the technical pieces very solid, so that come the spring, hopefully those pieces are very well ingrained, and we can focus on playing the game, short game, strategy, all those kind of elements to really get the most out of the game.
And you guys have been with us on this journey now for obviously 5 years, and you know our swings, to be honest, as well as anyone knows our swings. I mean, everyone sees it and how many different versions that we've both went through, really.
If you watch enough videos, you'll see enough changes.
I know. So so this will be fun. I think we're both starting a pretty good foundation. I know there's some things that you're frustrated with your swing. I really like a lot of what you're doing right now, and I know there's some kind of refinement and tweaking that's going to go into it, and that'll bring the consistency that you're looking to sort of get back to it. But I think you're in a pretty good spot in terms of a starting place.
I think that's fair, and I think what'll be cool about this series is there are some things that the two of us will work on in common, but there's a lot of stuff that we have different patterns of that Scott will identify. So I think between the two of us, all the viewership will see tons of stuff that will apply to them. It's not just going to be for one type of player. There's things that you struggle with, there's things that I struggle with. So we're going to do lessons, with each of us with Scott and kind of identify those things, and hopefully you guys can learn something from them.
And take it through the process. Great. Okay.
So you're first.
I'm going to go in first, tag in, and then Matty, you'll jump in video number 2. And then we'll try and keep this going, guys, as a series towards the season, and as I say, let you guys follow along the journey.
Sounds good.
Essentially, I teach 13 different patterns with sub-variations on all those patterns. So we have a starting point. One of the most common ones I think we'll probably use with Matty is a constant radius pattern. But with you, we're going to change it up and go a little bit more Rory McIlroy, what I call an elephant trunk pattern, or what we call a dynamic loading of the lead arm adduction, technically is what it's called, but it's a little bit more of a free-flowing pattern. Versus, let's say, a tighter structural pattern like constant radius. And we've gone down that route in the past.
We've done a little bit of that,
It's worked in spurts, right? But I think just in terms of the way that you learn and the way that your body likes to try and move, I think something with a little bit more flow to it is probably going to be easier for you to maintain.
Without a doubt.
So a couple of the elements in this type of a pattern is really understanding, maybe if you kind of face the camera there and just put your left arm out, okay, for the viewer, it's just understanding what lead arm adduction is. So this is just the element of this arm moving across the chest, and how we utilize this, and more importantly, how we bring it back is very, very important to our golf swing. So different patterns, we adjust this. So in a lot of patterns, we're loading this not very much, okay? In this particular pattern, we're talking about elephant's trunk. Then we're actually loading it on the way down.
Right.
Okay? So what that does is that loads more depth into the swing. So this motion is a depth producer in the swing. So it loads more depth into the swing, allows the player to continue to pivot while still bringing this club, let's say, fairly shallow from the inside.
Right.
Okay, and that's really important because how we utilize this lead arm affects how we use the wrist. Okay, so what would happen maybe from a good model for the viewer is because, go ahead and put both hands on it for me, just hold it up in front of you. So what happens is anatomically, when the shaft starts to line up with the trail arm, is that we'll see breakdown at the wrist level.
Right.
Okay, so every Hall of Famer in history basically hits the golf ball with the trail arm out of line.
Yep.
Okay, with the shaft. So what this does to a large extent is this builds dorsiflexion in the trail wrist, okay, and also creates forward shaft lean. But it also, back here on the interval as we call it, the face is not closing as quickly. Okay, so the more the shaft starts to line up with that trail arm, the faster the face rotates. Okay, so we're trying to hit the golf ball out of line of the trail arm. Okay, so anytime that we have some elements here like the lead arm adduction where this is getting pulled across the body too much, this pulls out the trail arm. Okay, and then we see some wrist problems, we see some delivery problems here with the club face. So in your pattern, what we're really looking at, without really adding turn, is the arms are going to work up, they're going to work in, then the body's going to turn back to the golf ball.
Right.
Okay, and that's basically how Rory does it, okay, what we call this dynamic loading of the lead arm adduction. Okay, now a couple elements we want to avoid in this pattern. We don't want the wrist to move very much in this plane of motion. Okay, or what we call radial deviation. We want the wrist to feel like they move a little bit more toward dorsiflexion. Now, truthfully, there's going to be a little bit of that, but we're going to feel like it's mostly back bend, or what we call dorsiflexion in the trail wrist. Okay, so the pattern is going to look like, without adding body turn, we're going to go up. We're loading the arm across. Okay, we're loading the wrist across. Okay, this arm is going to slide down the chest, and we're going to rotate back to the golf ball.
Right.
Okay, but you see how that motion, these wrists never worked in this plane very much. Okay, and that's going to allow us to create these very, probably most impressive long clubs in particular. Okay, we'll hit them very strong, very high with very little spin.
Right.
Okay, because we have the shallowness created by the lead arm adduction, but we've also got the wrist conditions fairly strong. So we're not going to see a lot of spin, we're not going to see a lot of release forward this way. We're going to hit some shallow, kind of high, flat golf shots with that type of a pattern.
And we've looked at some different things from a shot shaping standpoint over time. I think when we first started working, I was definitely on the hooky side. We had to kind of get that out of there. We worked on a fade pattern for quite a while. I think where we start from this time is a pretty neutral place.
I'd agree.
So maybe we don't have as much of the shot shape stuff to work on. So the path will be something that we don't focus on as much, being into out or out to in. Whatever really appears will be fine.
Yeah, I think just neutral in general. I think you'll probably see. Obviously, Rory hits it both ways. I'm probably predominantly most comfortable hitting a small draw, but I mean, he can obviously hit fades quite easily from that sort of setup. But really what we're looking for, I would say, for you is more consistent, let's say, dynamic loft, more consistent, sort of lie angle at impact.
Definitely.
Those are the kind of numbers that we can verify on quad and see how these changes are affecting that. But also, as we work through the pattern a little bit, what we're going to see is hopefully a fairly easy application of speed. Right, and that's something I think that is important for you as a player. Is you're certainly strong enough, you work hard in the gym, you do those things, but we want to match that up with a pattern that's going to deliver, let's say, medium long length at least to the game, because I think that's going to be a great thing combined with some good accuracy. Let's kind of work on perhaps a little bit of a waggle here just to get the right loading order.
And just not to kind of dive back too far, because we, like you said, we have done some stuff, but we have made some posture changes. We've talked a little bit about weight not being on the heels too much. We're trying to kind of get the kneecaps over the balls of the feet. some things like that. You know, in order to load in the backswing, we've actually turned my right foot in a little bit to give us something firmer to turn into on the backswing. We have done a little bit of that work before today.
For sure, and so when we get set up, maybe just as a quick review here, when we're getting that set up, what we're looking for is a couple of pieces here. We want to be fairly, you know, the second last shoelace or the last shoelace is a good reference for where we want to feel the overall pressure in the feet. At the same time, we're going to try and get fairly flat in the lumbar spine. So even a little bit more tucked in this, just a hair, just a hair. So that engages the glutes. That also engages the lower core. Now that connects the lower body to the upper body. So when we have a good connection there, then the torque that we're going to produce in the ground has the ability to actually get transferred. Right. So when we get a little lazy, we get a little bit of anterior pelvic tilt, the butt out a little too much. At setup, that basically disconnects the upper body from the lower body. So now you could be working really hard against the ground, but you're not seeing the output being able to transfer forward, or sorry, upward. Okay, so there you go. So you just feel that little bit of a glute engagement here. Okay, lower core. Excellent right there. And then we'll work on that pattern going back.
Okay, so we're trying to work a little bit more on
just a little bit straighter back. So as a reference, you know, we can use the tees here a little bit. So on the way back, we want to feel the club, feel like it gets stretched over the orange tee here a little bit. Okay, but then the downswing is going to feel a little bit more in as we load this dynamically. Okay, we call this the Freddie Couples drill. This is sort of an old Freddie Couples drill to create a little bit of this sort of pattern. Now, good. Now, what I want you to do is anytime you see that ball go a little bit left, I want you to feel like you turn into that lead arm harder.
More,
Okay? Okay, closer.
What does that mean exactly, Scott, like turn into the lead arm?
So when we do that, what we're trying to do in this pattern is the loading of this lead arm. Initially, we're just moving this whole thing nice and wide like this, okay? Then in transition, because of the motion of the wrist going this way, this is pulling everything across me. But really what we want to do, because we're trying to be very dynamic, is we're going to turn our body in the opposite direction as this is loading in this direction.
I see.
So now I'm turning into my bicep.
So a bit of separation, just for a lack of a better term?
There will be some separation for sure going on, but in terms of this, it's just that that's how we're loading this, or when we're loading it is the most important thing on this. Okay. Very nice.
Gets that nice right start line
look to it.
Yeah, and so that one there is going to feel like the interesting thing from a player perspective is very early in your downswing. It feels like, wow, I'm going to hit it into the right side of the screen here. But then you look up, and what's happened is because your pivot is more open, this has actually dragged this whole apparatus around, and yet you see the ball flight there was quite nice. Okay, just about.
A little bit more in the middle of the club.
That's nice there.
The one thing I will say about that, and this pattern does lean towards it, is that feels very, very easy.
Right.
I mean, there's so low in effort. That's like a 6, a 5 or a 6 in effort, and it's flying out 183, which is not far off where I've been kind of carrying 6-iron recently. So.
Right. Yeah, and I think what we'll see just from a delivery perspective, right? So we see the lie angle is within about 2 degrees. Okay, which is a good number because usually when it's bad, it's 4 or 5 or whatever.
For sure,
so that part I think is very good. Now, again, we're going to control the path more than anything else, just with how fast can I rotate, how fast can I go, right? So as we load this, okay, and you get that feeling of the dorsiflexion, on the next couple, what I want you to do is I really want you to feel like you leave the arms back there or turn into that very hard, but I really want you to feel like the face is right and the body is left. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Great swing.
Looked like a great sequence to me, yeah.
Yeah, well put together there. A little more speed on that one.
Show us those rehearsals, Ian, again. You're kind of a two-part waggle that you guys have been talking about. What does that look like?
So the first thing, because I've always had a tendency, Matty, for that head to come in early and push the right elbow behind the rib cage. So one of the things we've focused on for probably a couple of months now is really trying to establish more of that sort of look.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and if we look at that, I think the other camera over here will pick this up quite nicely, but we're looking at the spacing here. We're not loading this in initially.
Okay.
Right? So if we don't load it in initially, then that gives us the opportunity in the second half of the backswing to actually load it. So now the wrist is going to go back, you're going to turn to the top, and as you do that, you're going to feel this whole thing start to load closer to the chest this way. So we've closed up this gap.
Right.
Which is the lead arm adduction. Now we're even going to capitalize on it even more, because as we turn into it this way, we almost feel like you're squashing that left arm against the chest.
So he wants to almost increase that on the way down, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what I feel like. I kind of feel like if I had something in there, I'd really be crushing it against my left pec.
Now here's the cool thing, okay? So we're going to get this handle down, okay, at impact by understanding where this should crush your chest.
Yeah.
So if we do this correctly, you want to feel like you're crushing your chest basically right across the nipple. Okay? So if I take that apparatus and turn, you'll see that the handle is quite a bit lower now.
Yeah.
See how the handle's much lower, much more left.
Yeah.
Okay? Now let's do that one more time. If I were to crush the chest, let's say where the TXG logo is, a little bit higher. Okay, so if it goes this way and crushes it, now you'll start to tilt.
Yeah.
Okay. So where that left arm squeezes or adducts is incredibly important to this pattern.
Right.
So if it gets high, I'll go this way. If it loads and squishes, let's say a little bit lower on my chest, toward the bottom of my chest, from here I can now rotate without tilting. Now, feel a difference in the finish?
Totally. Yeah, that felt different.
Okay. So felt like you swung a little bit more left.
Yeah.
So the exit should be lower and more left then, Scott?
A little bit lower and left as the pressure point gets lower on the chest.
Gotcha.
So that's why what we're really doing is we're you know, everything in the swing tends to work in circles. So that's why on the way back it's important to get this high so that later it'll go low.
Yeah.
Okay? If it's low, it's more likely to come in high.
Yeah.
Okay?
Opposites.
So we're all, it's always opposites. So that's why it's important to get the up first, then the back, because that will allow this then to fall down the chest as it adducts. Then you'll feel the left arm fall a little bit more.
Get that angle down a little bit more there.
Okay?
1.8.
1.8, very nice.
It's moving in the right direction, yeah.
So we're seeing that handle get lower, but interestingly enough, even though you feel like your left arm is lower and more inside, your path numbers are actually straighter.
Yeah.
Right? Which shows you a little bit of how you were creating that inside path. Really wasn't coming from the arm structure.
No.
It was coming from the tilt.
The tilts, yeah.
Starting to get it now.
So what I really felt there, it was probably one of the worst swings I've made today, was how much more I got that way. Really lost the face on that one. Didn't get it there, and then get the wrist position.
Okay, very close.
Okay, so that was a little bit better in terms of the pattern, I think, there. So we can start to see the change in tilt in the club.
The toe up, right.
So three major components we're talking about. Initial sort of takeaway, creating that space between left arm and chest. So we're kind of taking it out, feels like that way, creating that.
And here, like if you look at just where the middle of that bicep is, so from here, as you load this, so go to the top for me, or feel that go this way, you see how that bicep rotated internally, okay? But as it rotates internally, it's also gonna fall down the chest a little bit here. So you wanna feel like you touch the top of the bicep, basically to your nipple, okay, or to the bottom of your chest there, okay, by the time you get to this point in the downswing. So that's why in this swing, there is no top of the backswing.
Yeah.
It's all fluid. There's no
Continuous
freezers.
motion.
There's no stopping there, okay? Because you're really looking for this dynamic load to happen in transition. So it's here, here.
Yeah.
Okay, so even doing things like that. So you can kind of create a gun with your finger this way, then you're gonna rotate the gun over as it comes down, right?
And you said to me, one of the things I always think about is the seatbelt. Pull the seatbelt across.
Right.
We're always talking about that kind of lead arm as we get it sort of up there, making sure we feel like we sort of have that feel to it.
Now, if I actually got my left arm that low, I'd be Jim Furyk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Well, literally, that's where he plays from.
Yeah.
So he's playing from this position to get this to impact. That's why he looks like this.
Yeah.
Okay. So he is the most seatbelty.
Yeah.
Of all the players, right? And that's why, well, Callaway says he's the straightest player they've ever tested, right? In terms of his face-to-path relationships.
Right. So that was one with reasonable speed, 85, at 0.6 toe down. So adding a bit of the speed back in, but with some of these elements.
Yeah, it makes sense as we add speed, right? The more than anything else, the inertia, the centrifugal force of that is going to start to cause this to start to get pulled down a little bit.
Right.
First motion back looked good to me from back here.
Yeah, that was nice.
Looked better.
I liked it. That was good. Very close.
Yeah, and we've kind of found a little bit of a sweet spot, I think, in terms of, 2.5 into out, 2.5 toe down. Seems to be today's kind of like baseline, which is fine. I'm way happier starting today with that being kind of where our starting point is. I think the progression of the movement of the lead arm with a little bit of the load of the wrist down will take care of the one that's just leaking to the right a little bit.
Good first session, yeah?
Yeah, good, very good. Yeah, feel like that's a little refresher and some things that were really feeling good before Christmas.
Good.
And as, even just starting out, I kind of had a little feel for something, but I kind of had lost some of the nuance to it, like a little bit of the lifting with a little bit of the falling of the arm. I think I'd lost a little bit of that, feel. So
certainly
nice
for
to get
you,
that
that's a vital piece.
Yeah.
That's probably, the sticky piece in the loading pattern going back. Like you said, instead of getting under yourself and in.
Yeah.
At which point now this arm is actually working this way.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. In your particular case, based on what we're looking for, if we can give you some freedom.
Some freedom with that.
And that's where the speed is effortless, because really what you're doing is you're just allowing this to fall and you're turning.
Yeah.
So the analogy I like to use is like dropping a marble in the blender. Right? You've got this thing falling, and as it's falling, it's catching the blades of the blender as we spin really hard.
Yeah.
Okay. As a result, now that marble gets whipped around the corner so quickly.
Yeah.
And that's where you're feeling that passive torque.
Yeah.
And like you said, it doesn't feel like you're doing a whole lot, but we're getting well over 90 miles an hour with what you think is a 65, 75% effort.
Yeah.
So,
Love it.
Right?
Love it. Thanks, pal.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so now we'll put Scott to a little bit more work to work on my swing.
yeah, looking forward to seeing
Beautiful.
you in there, Matty boy.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Guys, thanks for watching. As Ian mentioned, we're going to do this probably every 2-3 weeks. And if we don't have Scott, because Scott's obviously a busy guy in high demand, as he is such a great coach, Ian and I will be filming our own sessions for practice, keeping an eye on each other.
Yeah.
We've got a new kind of different point of view camera that we've got that's going to help us take some different footage, keep you guys a little more apprised. So kind of the Swing Journey series starts right now, and we move on from there.
Very cool.
Okay, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you again soon.